Wait, say something real quick.
Better?
Wait, just say like a sentence or something. Just a test.
My name is Animesh.
Okay, yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Okay, cool. Just let me know whenever
Awesome.
you're ready, Autumn.
Let me close my. Yeah, just let me close my door and then I'll be back.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I am good.
Okay, cool. The man ethic is reflective of equilibrium. We also reach beliefs through an intuitive reflection process. Pure impure systems insufficient to justify more normative moral truths. Yet pure abstraction cannot understand substantial truth. Perfect 11. Positive substantial normative truths have the analytic. The truth falls with their immediate order. Least against self-doubt and virtue judgment is refined as wrong must. The sense of conflict reasons reach with collective equilibrium. This is only depends about the people I find conflicting. Police have to debate similar truth after reflection. People who self-find conflicting is equally odd. You could dispute others could rationally disagree. You would be equally rational to reject this belief. We cannot usually people claims that this way only rule util strikes this balance. Hardcore pierces theory across infinite calculations are unenforceable, while Dane torches unwavering acceptance of principles and flexible. Oh wait. Rule consequences is evaluated to women's expected by the except for the majority endorse rule prohibiting attacking innocent people, take property, making promises, and paying special attention to family and friends, whether they have with society, what rules are widely accepted will be likely to be recorded, and these rules seem like rules consequential. This last one, and like principle defines justification intuitive possible rules. No, Robert there does this as well. Thus, the standard is rule consequential, so defined as a sufficient procedure that questions whether actions fall under broadly beneficial rules. Impact out 8-point rule. RC would adopt a rule against the status of the friends absolute obedience to sufficiently drastic standards. Small organizations like Act would break rules for don't count. Or two, RC would prevent disasters. Motivation would be strong enough. Motivation should collide when necessary. When human problems would produce a little more good. It tells us that disaster rules not the motivation comes into play when there's sufficient large difference in such a value. Incorporating disaster requirements on a visualization to act. B, specific instantiation of the resolution. Don't disprove general rule. The even if I outline my friend that there should look like it doesn't until they outline the rule. See fragments first. Ethics should be a question of usability. A theoretic integration cannot be applied broadly enough. It's good thought experience, but bad one of clash. Moral substitutability is true. Only consequential as explains it. So no one find you. If there's more reason to do X and A, can't do X with Y. Doing Y will enable A to do X. There's more reason to do Y. I call this the principle of moral substitution, not consequential. If I promise a motive law, there's a reason to vote the grass. I would not follow that for any reason to start my motor since I have no problem to start my war. Give me a reason to start motives. Consequences. I can mow the graph. Language cannot describe reality, which means operating knowledge base. Current rational policy in separate language. One is the same as other. Constantly for my arbitrary discarding these individual differences. One understanding the world based on the falsification experience. Intuitions are inescapable. Humor. It is reasonable to do things with my experience. Some experience of strong appears to convey intellectual supposed essential logical judgments. Rest of intellectual appears to be seen not with our eyes, but intellect. Any point perceived by somebody inside way they appear until evidence itself drawn from appears as even though arguments of a skeptic rest upon what seems to skeptic true. No, there is no intent for such distinction. If I threw a knife at your face, I cannot reasonably say that I couldn't expect it. Anything that is reasonably predictable under the jurisdiction of government should be included in our calculations. There also is no activation distinction because governments have jurisdiction over everything in the public sphere, so their obligation to act on behalf of one person or a population. Now, the plan resolves states ought to eliminate their nuclear arsenals. Any all spec questions should be asked in context of what frivolous theory debates. Now, the advantage to deterrence is myth and bad will the presence of new science and sensibility makes war effort with many past to failure without mitigation. Barashi team. Neither side want to go the elimination of the Nixon use to the Nixon on national government and be not it's better to the trends, but in spite of I'm not sure other hands for Chinese Cuban revolution gets lost Vietnam used to be lost the back faster in the war, but static education warfare theory about the US Arms on human traffic concerning sources station recruitment down to 340 to be 3 PM states where less than actually going to win deterrence via nuclear weapons acts right over the China Europe with nuclear weapons destroy deterrence price use as rotate section of the states are capable to market the evidence of the situation with such place of the advantage strike president's able to deterrence to soft professional. I think about psychology tests observe people academic misrepresentation stop this private confession in certain situations where pressures of lose the picture and sense irrational like the legal like the fear of one in paths of escalating pressure word accidental all after use false alarms delete retaliation broken errors accidental launch priority events such as a rupture pipeline of faulty codes of interpreters to launch state sponsor cyber attacks on the rise test on 18 state sponsor cyber attacks recognizing human new benefit 50 European self-direct after DC and HOC attacks are complex funded by Russia and North Korea key by 2022 after the general awareness this primary source nuclear weapons are sitting across the cyber attacks cause unimaginable escalation for 18 even this is regard to the threat of cyber secret press nuclear level cyber operations offensive days capable of the press on natural escalation hack restoring communication including conventional yelling kitchen percent track coming like my confusion attacks I as a close by many third party after inside for cyber attacks reduce the ability to signal third by compressing assess on the big conventional nuclear state my friend trust military doctrine guarantees nuclear retaliation for 18 Link nuclear project diversified running the attacks of U.S. retaliation with nuclear weapons adoption, threatening Uganda who protects the cyber of the U.S. So it could more devastating than any cyber attack Russia had retaliate nuclear weapons but leave the U.S. minus people. If the U.S. tries to use low threshold nuclear weapons instead of the match how nuclear war reported that cost of the extinction should be a nuclear winter. Star 17. Nuclear war codes are the vast old fed smoke that remain increasing others on 50%. Proof national take us for modern weapons that are more powerful. War with nitrogen immense five smoke with 70% of sunlight temperature small face over student human population. The absence of long-term solution this card also explains implementation period 16. To achieve global elimination of nuclear weapons station, discuss the development efforts to see public running weapons as well as stock-based increase confidence, increase behavior disarm is everyone transfer heads on highlight increase decrease operation right needs to face rush ban nuclear weapons as ban pressure physical materials limit existence of and efforts to monitor disarmament and space process starting reduction any with the nuclear weapons now the underview. Versus 183, 8 point the Afghans because otherwise the negative engaging infinite peace making debate possible. B point drop the bid, the short 1 year irreparably skewed from reveals and substance time medicine on theory can't split itself. C point new RBS statistics to an arguing collapse a short term gateway infinite 1 CBs be a sure brute force and time spent theory. G point use competing terms 1 year in terms of bidirectional next should have dependent norms to say 4 times yes. F RBS 8 point F 4 minute 1 to answer to your theory which gives my time on other arguments. T bytes over higher percentage of my time. B point no risk issue for the negative. You can go for it in the 2 and R. If I over allocate, you can just kick it. 3 fairness is voter debates competitive activity but needs both debaters beyond an equal playing field, argumentatively technical literacy about nuclear policy spills out, especially necessary in a generation of nuclear ignorance for a majority of the team. Failed in nuclear realm committee has shopping efforts from non-political appreciation committee motivating being a member of the community engaging to start education all space answers with policy expertise to help out decision makers to run the policy issues expertise available political leads rest of them can be discussing crucial start with topics so to have politics if influence pass on the inclusion power be some things that inform such as the end war there's no perception of any real new the changes experts in disarmament short supply new generation growing up with the possession of the risk was building social movement towards disarmament. I'm good for cross-ex.
Cool. So you had okay. So like underneath rule utilitarianism, what is like the foundational rule? Is it a rule to avoid disaster? Is it a rule that pain and pleasure are like good and bad? What exactly is like the basis of your framework?
We think pain and pleasure are good, but we should utilize this as an impact calculus through rules and not specific actions like act util would.
Okay, I guess my question is just based on the 1AC you read, what is good underneath the F framework?
What a utilitarian would think is good, i.e. preventing pain and maximizing pleasure.
No. Yeah, I understand that. My question is like,
right.
Where did you warrant that part of the framework?
Oh, so first is the parfait stuff that sets up the framing. You have to strike a balance between.
Well, that's a meta ethic, right?
Right.
Yeah, my question is like, where did you establish that pleasure is good or a utilitarian theory is a pleasure-based theory?
The Hooker 08 evidence says that it is net better to do those things. Obviously, there are things when we like the rule, the sort of reflective equilibrium stuff says that we ought to err against unintuitive moral principles like killing.
Yeah,
killing people is bad. Pain is bad.
The Hooker evidence never says pain. It says taking property, attacking innocent people, breaking promises, lying. That seems like a very like diverse set of like different actions. My question is, what unifies us and tells us why those things are bad?
Well, intuitions is the first thing. That's what the meta ethic
is there anything else besides intuition?
Yes, there is. Right. So there's intuitions. The moral substitutability argument.
That doesn't establish anything about why something is good or bad.
Well, it says that we need to evaluate the consequences of actions.
That's okay. I guess my question is like, besides intuitively it being bad, why should we not lie?
Because it's a bad rule to endorse for society, and because the
why? That's my question. Why?
Right, the consequences of it. The consequences of implementing as a
what
rule.
Consequences matter? Or okay, that's fine. Intuitions itself. What is intuitive?
I mean, we ought not kill babies.
No. What is the definition of something being intuitive? Is my question.
Something that makes sense. Something that
that is intuitive.
Something that is reasonably acceptable. Like if I told you we should kill Hitler, that's reasonably acceptable.
So something is intuitive if it is intuitive. I just want to clarify.
Well, no, I gave you another definition, which is like if you
reasonably acceptable is a synonym for intuitive.
Right. So here's a litmus test. If you were to go up to someone and say like, should we kill people? They would most likely tell you no, because that's what their intuitions tell them.
So we should like
pull people? You think, it's your gut feeling, what you think about something.
Oh, okay. So like a KKK member intuitively hates like black people. Is that okay? Is that a moral rule we could endorse?
Well, that's not a moral rule because those, that population doesn't represent the vast majority of people. Like the vast majority of people would say that that's ridiculous.
Okay. Starting prep. So like then we should create rules based on like the populations we're inside, right?
Not necessarily. Like it really isn't that complicated. Like killing is bad. We shouldn't lie generally.
You're
It's just
okay.
intuitive
You're
rules.
distracting from my question. That is fine. Is it 4 or 5 minutes of prep, by the way? I didn't ask.
I think POC is 5. We can do 5.
I want to say 5. I want to say 5.
Okay, 5 it is. Sorry, my phone is buzzing. Okay, start prep. 202 left. I'm sending out the document. Oh no, I don't need to send it. Just put it in the thing, right?
I don't think you can put documents in there. I tried it with it.
Yeah, sorry. When I said thing, I meant Facebook message.
Oh yeah.
Where is it? Okay. Okay, sent. It's just NCAC. I'm just running the underview real quickly, then aft top down. There are lots of like random cards on case in the document. I doubt I will get to most of them, but we'll see.
Cool.
I'll just like say which ones I am reading or whatever. Let me know when you're good. Zach?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I'm good.
All right. Awesome. I negate. To negate means to deny the truth of this is implications. First, you presume like there are more reasons why a statement might not be true that one's directly prove the statement. Two, second, permissibly flows after presumes moral obligation. That what odd entails is proving permissibly assumed for obligation. Yet the standards consistency with the will of the sovereign. For one, by 8 point, morality lacks practical authority or agents on enforcement such a public law. If I can get away with theft or murder without remorse, punishment, or change my behavior, conscious moral reasons to commit particular forms of agency like autonomous self-flagellation, I won't be obligated to follow abstract principles. If moral duties are in term absolute supreme authority to resolve them. For instance, all practical achievement has the ability to grow proper goods that I can use from a person, but the rules property says for terms of that cannot be used to previously things by judicial authority. And we have no reason for morality, then we become skeptical. Second, meaning we're going to have a stable conception of morality, meaning we have a dominant creator, meaning this is true through social covenant to point to sovereign. Without when everything feels to make sense directly hijacks their arguments about language not being comprehensible, that only achieved through sovereign. Perish. Truth is a functional logic of language. Connection names and objects not natural. There are artificial concerned references. There are no authentic doctrines anywhere around good and evil. These failures are placed on things by humans active creation by the discriminant actions in fact where every person their own person will be good and evil by their special creating labels for things that they based on individual appetite. I contend the result of sovereign's power, ultimate power, the state cannot be obligated to eliminate coercion. First, given the state of international affairs, states only the choice to act globally to maximize their empire and international system for states for one another. One, the absence of central authority. Two, the states always have an offensive military capability. Three, that states can never be certain about other states' intention. Given the sphere that states recognize the most more powerful rather than chance of survival. The best guarantees for others to be hegemonic because other states can surely so much power, mighty target powers have little choice but to pursue power to seek and dominate other states in the system, regardless of whether it turns works. Individual states facing major security dilemmas possess a strong intention to polarity in self-defense. The third of nuclear war and the practical touching on state national survival countries that fear overthrow or broader major security problems are more likely to consider proliferation, where pessimists fear conflict, optimists see the opportunity permissibility because the universal nuclear conflagration tend to trigger natural forms of international violence, given the risk of escalation. Further, because the uncertainty inherent to the international arena, especially in the case of nuclear policy, each individual state is a good way to know how other entities will interpret a given situation. The only constant from which from more principles concerning the state from the individual state's perspective, thus the state perceives proliferation means obligation, self-defense, that possession nuclear is legitimate. That outweighs foreclosing future possibilities, inconsistent states' ability to maximize the power. Since there are always certain instances where it would be advantageous to have nuclear weapons. Second, the AC assumes there's a power higher than the sovereign maybe that term is contradiction. 8 point sovereign self-power with only obligation sovereign to be created self-conceiving through the sovereign that makes sovereign wouldn't be able to limit his own power and restriction upon himself because that denies his own power and pushes towards the state nature. Always terms because a tyrannical state is far better than state nature and empirics prove the state's best way to decrease out time form. We are the rule pinker. Violence declining because historical circumstances increasingly favor better angels and most obvious passing force in the state with not the legitimacy forces and interested judiciary and police can diffuse temptation, exploit it back, inhibit the impulse for revenge, circumvent the self-serving vices, to killing, decline, following the extinction, and consolidation of states. Now, the underview real quickly. Counter-interpretation do not get one access, one answer, insofar as one and sees the interest is one unconditional link and impact term rather to themselves of their offense because they still have the ability to contest any of the NC and have as reciprocal access, whereas the 1 or 3 destroy strategy gives them a 7-6 time advantage and destroys substantive education, which would mean they were just whining. Now the F proper, the reflective equilibrium arguments. One, reflective equilibrium is self-undermining since we have intuitions that don't favor reflective equilibrium. E.g., we think that our own and other people's first order intuitions can be distorted by bias, and that there might be mind-independent motions that we can discover through a reflective equilibrium. We have to modify the method to itself to achieve equilibrium. This means the method is contradictory, triggers an infinite regress of revision. Since every time we change our method, we have to revise all of our beliefs to meet new conditions, which means changing the method itself. Second, reflective equilibrium is results in underdetermination. Since there are current equilibrium for moral beliefs, as long as my beliefs are consistent and give mutual support, they tend to equilibrium. That means their choice of ethical systems under reflective equilibrium becomes a matter of arbitrary preference. Now, the line below the first part of the evidence says that empiricism is insufficient and neither is abstraction, but their framing is necessarily entirely empiricist. It relies on us going to the empirical world and determining that X, Y, and Z are what on balance create the best utility, and it creates absolute rules, which is exactly what the framing unites, which means are the worst of rules. The Hooker evidence literally says deontology is unwavering acceptance of principles, but they are an acceptance their principles. Anything else would mean their framing would collapse to some sort of active if they make some sort of exceptions that will otherwise they bite into this independently. We hijack these arguments to prove the way we understand reflective equilibrium. If we are unable to understand each other, which requires some sort of sovereign or overrushing authority, which would mean that you would still require, which would mean you still require negative framing. That rule you turn framing proper. A couple responses. One is rule you fails to guide action. There's no way to catalog every possible choice I might face and advise rules that cover all of them. In my case, rules don't cover rules. Util will not tell me what to do. Second, infinitely aggressive. If rules are the only way we can drive motivation, then we can't be motivated by rule util because there's no case where a rule would mandate us to follow their framework, even if it's good and abstract. If people are motivated to follow a given philosophy, there's no point in having it. Third, it's in contradictory or incoherent. Double one. Either I say a rule that generally produces utility, but in some cases I know that obeying the rule would cause extinction. If rule util tells me to follow the rule, in that case it's contradictory since it makes a rule that itself fails to maximize utility. Or B, it tells me to break the rule, which means it ceases to be a rule-based theory. Third, if rules are good, my framework's best way to respect such we present more overarching rules that are easier to follow. I preserve some. Fourth is collapses to active utilitarianism. There will inevitably be a situation in which there's no clear rule for me to follow, which is H1 maximizing utility by analyzing specific situation. Independently predictions fail. Induction fails the past non-reliable predictive for tuning is induction proving induction that be circle also they're infinitely cascading each consequence. Hence another consequence to an infinity, which means that we can't formulate stable rule that tells us how to act in every single situation. The hooker or the impact calc, the 8 point, they say we would adopt rule against exception, but there are always going to be exceptions for that rule. They say specific instantiations of the resolution don't just prove the general rule. That doesn't matter. The pragmatics first argument says it's a question of usability. Only my firm feasible that allows us to engage in the ethical theorizing for some sort of sovereign. The armchair evidence. The ontology says that there's a necessary means or necessary enabler. A necessary enablers are means to an end. That I need to start the lawnmower in order to engage in my end. Infinitely, util has infinite amount of enablers. Like the infinite steps I take to start the mirror, which means their framework would cut paralysis. They say language trying to describe reality. Yes, only the sovereign resolves it. They say intuitions are unstable. One next question is what is intuitive? There is no definition that isn't circular in nature. Second, it would say that populations could create intuitive things that are good for them, and there's no relevant metric to determine what is actually intuitive or not. For example, a KKK member or Nazi Germany would say that we ought to discriminate in horrible ways, which would obviously be better underneath the framework. Also, we intuitively come to the conclusion of the sovereign because it's necessarily better. The intent foresight, this argument doesn't matter, or even if this leads to us being called hostage by governments that threaten us with certain actions, and we can foresee it happening after emissions and seizure arguments. Governments are equally obligated to continue maximizing cluster, which is obviously bad. Case, I'm reading a couple of trends. One, empirical that after produce country chemical biological weapons. They act as substitute for nuclear weapons. Around 16 and empirical and inductive for observing historical data nuclear chemical biological weapons. Demand for weapons correlated. One state of nuclear weapons, they appear less likely to pursue possess chemical biological weapons. Reductions global supply of nuclear weapons cause states to pursue chemical biological weapons. Substitute for second studies prove the safeguard and rational sufficient for an enemy's calculation. Check substituting one nuclear used to fortify the absence can be explained by human produced efficiency recognition. The analysis covers 25 nuclear and those in charge have been responsible for mechanical close laws of term now close very distant. Third, 10 tech advances increases safety. Government 19 with legislative technology destroyed weapons found entirely destroyed digital technologies enhance strategy capability, improving warning testing, improving coverage fidelity, permitted accurate evaluation nuclear test launch, making mistakes less likely, advances in warning and reduce pressure using digital technology and nuclear stability by battery, bolstering confidence. 4, even if the countries do one cyber attacks can happen at a much smaller scale and it never results in casualty damage. Loose 18 risk collateral damage is small. Actually, the cause of damage can be counted on one hand. Chinese officials more considered China growth than American economy. Russia one confusion of physical damage, goals coercion, not destruction. Action stayed below the use of force threshold. The 2-day cyber attack, there's never been a casualty nor collateral damage.
Okay.
Just didn't read Martin.
Yeah. All right, ready?
Yep.
Who is the sovereign?
Who is the sovereign? What do you mean?
In a democratic government, who is the sovereign?
The government? I think you answered the question.
So is Congress the sovereign? Are the states the sovereign? What if Congress passes a federal law and the states contradict it? Who's the sovereign?
Sure. So I think you're drawing confusion between different levels of government and different branches of government. The sovereign is the federal level of government in the United States, right? So there could be multiple aspects.
What if the executive has a dispute with the Supreme Court?
Yeah, so I think the sovereign does resolve that, right? There are things like checks and balances in the United States.
So checks and balances are the sovereign, right? What is the sovereign?
No, I just told you it's the federal level of government. A government can have multiple people inside of it, right? The question is just like, how does the government resolve that? Each government has its own metric for how it resolves that. But the question is, what level of government is the sovereign, not who in government is the sovereign.
Sure, but I'm asking, let's say there's a case,
survivor type person.
Let's say there's a case, right, where there's contradictions. What ought to be the way that it is resolved, according to Hobbes?
Sure. So in the United States, for example, there's a federal document called the Constitution. It outlines what takes precedence, right? And so even though there's a conflict in the federal level of government, the federal government, surprise, has devised a sheet for how to
So the sovereign is particular. The sovereign is particular to the specific form of government, right? What about an anarchist government? A government that just doesn't have a government?
I think that's not a government.
What if the Constitution was like, everything should be anarchy? Who's the sovereign?
I hope you realize anarchy is defined by the lack of government, right? And I think all of the NC would indicate that there should be some government.
So what form does that government take? What form should it take? Because it seems like a democracy doesn't have ultimate power. Is that what Hobbes thinks is good?
What's your question?
Well, if you say that the sovereign is the Constitution has embedded checks.
No, I didn't say I did not say the sovereign is the Constitution. I said
so what is the
Constitution is a part of. So I think you're misunderstanding this argument, I think you're just misunderstanding how this works, right? So there are different parts of the sovereign, right? Like different branches, different documents, etc., that compose something that is the sovereign, right? It's not like the sovereign is a singular person who's in rule inside.
Okay, that's fine. The Mearsheimer evidence, how do states decide what is a liability to them and what is good for them in terms of maximizing power?
Is there something specific you're referencing?
The Mearsheimer evidence. How do we decide what is a liability or what is good for our national defense?
Wait, does it use liability someplace?
Well, it just says we ought to maximize our military power. How do we determine if something is a liability?
I don't understand where this language of liability is coming from. What is this referencing?
How do we tell if a certain policy is good or bad for national power? Because your evidence says we ought to maximize it. How do we do that?
Yeah, sure. So I think the NC offense illustrates like the way that we ought to maximize our power, right? That like to be a hegemon, you require power, which is nuclear weapons, right? Or there's an incentive to proliferate in some form.
Okay, that's fine. I'll start prep now.
Cool.
What is the implication of the stuff under the second the AC assumes there's a power higher than the sovereign?
What do you mean? Like it means you should negate.
Oh, got you. Yeah. Okay. It's just auto negate under Hobbes, right?
I wouldn't say it's automatically negate. I would say it's a reason why you should negate.
Okay, 148. Okay. There's nothing to send out.
Cool.
It'll be the aff starting with the framework, then the contention, and then the NC.
Awesome. One sec. Okay, I'm good.
All Extend part of 11, we have to use a reflective equilibrium to come to an ethical conclusion, which is aiding a solution core based on intuitions that is neither too far left or too far right there. NC violates this because the sovereign is something that is ridiculous, having absolute power because it justifies totalitarianism. They say it's undermined. No, our argument is that if it contradicts, it's equally rational to reject it as to confirm if it's 2 plus 2 equals 4. There's no sort of normative reason to reject it or any normative reason to accept it either. They say modify itself. No, if we reach equilibrium, we don't have to change. We only have to change after at least that haven't done so, which is what we judge by intuitions. We all know that that's as bad, so there's no reason to change. They say results in arbitrary preference. Yes, exactly. It's about the preference, but it's inevitable because everything is defined in the context of social interaction and social language, but they still have a missing interlink between that and the sovereign. They say it's empiricist. There's no impact. They say that they find no presumption because it stands logical. They literally just quoted the card, but had no one for why that's bad or why the affirmative precisely is that. They say they hijack as you understand through a rational actor. No, it's not about being able to understand itself on a practical level, but it's just that there's no a priori understanding. If I told you that there's a tree outside, you would still understand generally what a tree is. So it still makes sense. They say it feels like action because you can't count like everything. Yes, it guides action, but you eliminate the burden of you rule, you act util because one rule instead of infinite calculation takes out the other. So they say it's infinitely aggressive. No, the rule is to follow the rule of the affirmative. Everything develops the rules because there's some infinite because there's some infinite rule that would tell you, etc., etc. There's also no impact to infinite regression because it all goes back to intuitions. And they say contradictory. No, because we have a rule that has exceptions if it's sufficiently large. It's distinct from active utilitarianism because they say we would maximize utility in every single small instance, whereas ours is only in sufficiently large instances. They say more consistent rule. No, you don't. Who's the sovereign? That'll be on the other page where you should keep that in mind when you go back to this argument. They say induction fails. No, you consider pragmatics outweighing. You're only responsible for the negatives pragmatic. Anything else can't provide substantive moral truths because all you can do is do plus 2 plus 2 plus 4, but you can't apply that to the rule or the resolution, which outweighs because it's the most germane question. Close enough. And we pragmatically know that 99% is enough because we can tell from the past. Also, rule util avoids this because it doesn't require the past and intuition solve this argument anyway. Infinite cascade, and we can cut it off if the probability is still low. We don't have to calculate anymore. They say that that I'm not going for the other Sino Armstrong stuff. Cool. The contention. Extend the contention, extend the barrage evidence, deterrence fails. There's choice evidence is about there's choice evidence about the U.S., but it doesn't account for North Korea, whose safeguards don't exist. And because Kim is super paranoid, it links super hard to the barrage evidence. The Gumper evidence about tech and Lewis read cyber attacks, which doesn't apply to any of the accidents, means that even with the most advanced technologies by human psychology, which is inevitably bad because of irrational leaders in second level proliferation, the Lewis evidence is outdated. It doesn't assume recent cyber attacks that would be conducted by the Russia and China, and our evidence is that the U.S. would retaliate with a nuclear weapon. No impact to chemical, biological. They didn't read one. Now, the NC. First, Hobbes is repugnant, justifies the Holocaust of the sovereign will, independent voter of psychological and holding to their scholarship. They should be responsible for justifying atrocity that base. Second, it develops a rule of the state of nature causes infinite physical violence and dopamine. It's a biological phenomenon. Prefer flexible interpretation. Their vague metaphysics might be true, but it's not verifiable. And basic impact calculus tells of preventing escapation magic. Or third, who is the sovereign? Is impeachment a violation, although Congress has equal power to the executive? Hobbes' his theory is outdated and cannot account for complex democracies because he wrote in the 1600s the only objective measure is util. For given ultimately sovereign power self-defeating, the sovereign could both the state of nature or create chaos. That outweighs because it's not tribes cooperating, but mighty power deliberately causing me. I'm 5 to 1. Either humans are so self-interested that the sovereign is impossible because our individual desires overwhelm all unity, or the art, which is that Hobbes' strong claim is false. 6, if the sovereign needs to overpower potential challenges, why don't those more mighty challenges become the sovereign? Either a state of anarchy arises to determine who and what the sovereign is, or the sovereign isn't powered enough to prevent the state of nature. Now, there's specific arguments. Bindingness has no impact because even if you are bound to follow, it doesn't create any useful moral truth. They say it's indeterminate because it relies on property claims. That property claims also for you for a pain and pleasure because that's how you determine whether or not that's the motivation between having property and personal, which outweighs. They say the meaning. I've responded to that develop. There's no reason why you need a total sovereign democracy guides that just as well because it allows the civilians to sort of control what is what. The Mearsheimer evidence never talks about nuclear weapons. Our argument is that it's a liability because it might cause the death of the nation, which is the worst possible impact. The app is a sovereign act of changing their own rules. You preclude that. It's worse than it doesn't allow the sovereign to redefine itself. Turn, removing nukes is necessary since they're a massive threat to the stability of internal state. Outweighs nukes because literally destroy state, which turns the state of nature. And they definitely see from because you positive. Actually, don't make that argument. That was past the timer.
Okay, cool. I had 202 left, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, starting now. Wait, what were the turns you made?
First is that the Mearsheimer evidence never tells us like what is good for the state. We have comprehensive evidence that says that nukes are a liability because they could cause extinction in the state, which is the worst possible thing in our ways. Second is that the act is the sovereign choosing to change itself. So the negative posits a restriction on that, which is bad.
What was the fourth argument on the framework and the fifth argument?
Yeah, the fourth argument was because if you give someone ultimate power, that means that they could will the state of nature or create chaos that awaits because it's deliberate. And if you're like, oh, we just prevent that specific thing, that seems very arbitrary.
Okay.
The fourth and fifth argument. The fifth argument is that, yeah, either humans are so self-interested that the sovereign is impossible because all of our individual desires lead to anarchy, or humans aren't that self-interested, which means that Hobbes' strong claim about that is false.
Cool. Okay, cool. It's going to be NC then AC. Yeah, NC, I'm going to start with like just like top 10 in terms of like line aligning the 1AR.
Okay, cool.
Let me know when you are good.
I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome. The line will conclude that psychological violence arguments. One is a reward for why psychological violence is better. Second, there's a reward for why Hobbes specifically causes psychological violence. What does Hobbes justify? You would still say you have an ultimate right to self-defense, which means people consider purchase. They independently conceive that their firm release repugnant conclusions, like saying the Nazi Germany is justified or the KKK is justified, which means that there's at least parallel offense and it's necessarily worse, which is the reason independently reject the firm. You don't buy the psychological violence, independent better stuff. The util argument that conceded that this argument functions very well at the NC. It can straight up concede that we are the rule that their firm concludes, and I have evidence because straight up concede by the 1 year says that the state is the rule. We should follow the state's authority. It's what leads to the minimization in this balance between underneath the alternatives. The rule would be to follow the state because it maximizes the pleasure, gives us capacity for pleasure, prevents pain because of its ability to use force to quell rebellion, etc. Which means that if we win our framing, then if we win our offense, this straight up hijacks the framework and should come first because the prime official rule. The third argument, they say who's the sovereign. Hobbes is not complicated enough. They should just listen in cross-examination. They kept it over necessarily complicated. There is a federal level. The federal level is sovereign. The sovereign may be composed of multiple different parts and may have multiple different documents to interact. The sovereign has to figure that out and have those interact, but that does not mean that the sovereign itself does not exist, so that there's not federal authority. At best, it's just a reason why our framing might be hard to use, but that does not mean it's not true in the sense that the sovereign is still required because of the pragmatic advantages that we outlined in the bindingness, meaning claim, etc. The fourth argument, they say the ultimate power, the sovereign having the ultimate power means it can create the state of nature. No, the entire point of the social covenant that is signed to create the sovereign is that the sovereign provides you safety, and you give up your rights in order for the sovereign to provide you safety and remove the state of nature, which means the idea of the social covenant that both parties agree to is that that it must be able to keep a sovereign, and they may not be able to create the state of nature. The fifth don't want a human either self-interested or no. If there's self-interest, that unifies and motivates them as a sovereign. And when there's capital punishment for not following the sovereign's rules, that is necessarily what motivates them. The last argument, they say they would like the sovereign to choose to get rid of the state. This argument does not make sense because the sovereign would not be able to choose to get rid of itself because it already exists. The only obligation it has is to create itself. And also, if you not follow any of these arguments, you should be very lenient to bet on a two-area explosion. The unions line from the 1 area to the 2 area and what they were implicated specifically as being, which means you cannot bet on it. The NC proper overview, I'm extending presumption principle to negate. They concede that negate means that truth, which means permissible flows negatives. They have to prove some sort of proactive obligation, or we just need to prove the lack thereof. They say also presumption negates instead of more reasons why a statement might not be true. The ones who likely prove the same to the binding argument. They say no impact. No, they concede the scripture inside bit, which means that there is an impact. Either bindingness is true and only the sovereign motivates us, or it's not binding, and that means become skeptical. There's no reason for morality in the first place. They say intuitions check back. No, they conceded there's no definition of what a stable definition intuition. What is intuitive begs the question. Also, intuitions lead to repugnant conclusions like Nazi Germany, or the KKK being justified, which means that intuitions should not be a stable basis for ethical theorizing, which means they have no binding force. They concede we can reliably enforce sovereign dictate. They create an odd gap in morality. just because obligation doesn't exist does not mean we actually follow through with the action. Only the sovereign reliably enforces that, which means on a pragmatic level, and pragmatic should come first, and real world applicability comes first. That means our framing would necessarily come first. That parish argument say, the parish evidence, they just say we've all responded to this above. No, you have not. The sovereign is what unifies meaning languages incarnate, which is the argument they made, which means the only way to understand and unify all the different theories we have about pain, pleasure, rules, etc. is the sovereign, because otherwise we exist on different conceptual schemes. Without it, everything feels to make sense, which again is another trigger to some form of skepticism. The contention, they make 3 arguments, and it's very weak. The first argument says our mission members never talks about nukes. Yes, what our Gertz evidence says, it gives it the serves an incentive in the name of the state's self-security, because they cannot control the motivations of other states. They cannot know what other states' future actions. They say they make 2 offensive arguments. The first is that nukes are a liability. This one that relies on the winning a lynching, where you've actually put a lot of defense, a substantive defense on the lynching, which means you cannot be relied on. The second is that they're misunderstanding the argument. It says that they won. And also, even if this argument does not make sense, nukes are not a liability because they state will not be able to kill itself insofar as it still has absolute power. They've not won an argument says that miscalculation of self-nuclear war also is innately consequentially based, which our framing would not care about. Our framing cares about what the nature of nuclear arsenals itself is. If there's a world in which a state may choose to have a nuclear weapon, or when categorically destroys. This argument is a question of, is there an instance where the state might want nuclear weapons? If the answer is yes, you cannot will an absolute prohibition, because that closes off future possibility, which is necessarily antithetical to the realist nature of a nation. Also, granted uncertainty, this would not make sense. The final argument, they say the app is telling the state to change itself, which means that negative would be removing that. No, the app is fiating and forcing states into an obligation, and they're saying states ought to do this thing, which makes them act, which is against their will, which is against this rule, which all the reasons outlined in the NC would say, which means that affirmative is not telling this, the affirmative is telling the sovereign to do something, which is exactly the point. It's attempting to impose an obligation, which 8 point is not possible for their or conceded second point, but B point would not make sense, and rationally is not good because it limits their own power, which would be bad. The Pinker evidence was considered all done the analysis of. We are the rule that their framing would necessarily say is good, which means we are offense are necessarily outweighed. Because the question of if there's any chance of uncertainty in the international arena, any chance that they're foreclosing future possibility, this would mean that there's a prohibition on absolute elimination, which is exactly what they do. The framework arguments. I'm going for this. I'm going for the reflective equilibrium arguments. Don't matter because they've conceded. We also link into reflective equilibrium. The sovereign is not ridiculous. It's a question of how we are able to understand how access reflective equilibrium in the first place. The conditions for reflective equilibrium rely on their framing. They independently concede util is not intuitive, and there's no reason why util their framing concludes in their reflective equilibrium framing concludes in utilitarianism, especially granted they concede that they link their infinite enablers, which means that their framing per process, and their state is infinitely obligated to act, which are all reasons why you can reject their framing. I'm going for a couple of reasons why rule util fails. The first argument is it fails as a guide to action because there's no way to catalog every choice I might chase might have, which means that rule util doesn't tell me what to do. The second argument is conceded collapses to act utilitarianism. They're inevitably a situation in which there's no clear rule for me to follow, or where I need to make exceptions, because otherwise this is some sort of contradiction. Where I would say that I should just allow extinction to happen because I'm trying to follow rule, which means there's also act utilitarianism, and they conceded the induction fails, which means that it would because the passed on level for the future, the act utilitarianism would not function, which means that frame collapses something incongruent. That final argument is wrong evidence extends CBW shift happens, and it leads to deterrence, which they say break down, which triggers their impact scenario.
Okay. I had like 130 or something, right? I forgot.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Starting. Okay. It'll be the Hobbes contention really quick, then the app, and then the framework of Hobbes.
When you say the F, you mean like the F top down, right?
Yeah, framework, then the advantage.
Cool.
Okay. Is everyone good?
Yeah.
Okay. The terms were really, really badly mishandled. The argument about the sort of liability was skirted around. They say it's just key to self-security, but our argument is more empirically aligned to the real world, and it's how states should actually act. We have isolated instances where having nuclear weapons will lead to the state destruction. You consider the Wang argument, that's the ultimate evil because it leads to the state nature. Your argument about the social contract proves that you do care about empirics and how the world looks, because it's a question of whether or not the sovereign is able to protect people from the state of nature. Our argument is simple, that with nuclear weapons, they're unable to do so because it never leads to miscalculation and extinction. Winning any risk of the util advantage means that it outweighs every part of it. Your sort of vague metaphysical can't be any obligation to it is ridiculous and semantic mind games, whereas the only thing that matters is whether or not in the context of the resolution it's able to do that, which also means our argument here outweighs on specificity. That's game over right here. Now I'll just handle a bunch of the rest of the arguments. I'll win that too. Now the F. Spend way too little time on reflective equilibrium. The framing issue here is that they consider it's inevitable. We have to use intuition. Also, there are indicts about the KKK and whether or not we can tell what intuition is or not don't matter, because we still have to inevitably result into it because we use reflective equilibrium. They consider that the sovereign is not sort of rational and it's not in the middle of our intuitions, because it's not intuitive that authoritarianism or totalitarianism is a good system, and it's what they would theoretically justify. They consider the Pinker evidence does not justify this because it's in the context of sort of governments broadly, and it talks about democracies, which proves that there is some sort of limitation on sovereign. It also is in the context of the affirmative not relevant because we have one that in this specific instance nuclear weapons are necessarily bad. All we have to do is run reflective equilibrium. It's a meta ethic that takes out all else because it tells us we should care about pragmatic substantive moral truth instead of stuff like bindingness or skepticism, which are based on fringe moral theories. The argument about KKK was addressed. If we reach equilibrium, we don't need to change it. The KKK is a bad influence. We've already, as a mass, probably agreed that stuff like racism is bad. So we don't need to question it. We don't need to question it further. They can't look at every single choice. Our argument is that we take away infinite calculation because we use general rules that arise from one calculation and then apply to every instance. They say collapse is accurate. No, the rule to prevent disaster means that if something was sufficiently bad, i.e. extinction, that the affirmative is the exception because it is a really bad impact. Anti-utilitarianism is distinct because it tells us we should maximize even at a tiny instance, which is what leads to the max calculation. Induction, no, you can see the close enough in the pragmatic source framing. There's no impact to CB-dubs, and you can see the miscalculation argument about nuclear extinction. Now, the NC. The framework is so empiricist. I'm going for who is a sovereign instances. Either they can see that there is no clear definition of the sovereign, or there is one, and it can result in democracy. If the Congress poses restrictions on the executive, or the people pose restrictions on the federal government through democracy, then that just proves that there can be limitations on government, and that an absolute prohibition is absolutely ridiculous. They can see to the framing about flexibility that empirics are most closely aligned to real world. There's no state of nature, and we have democratic governments right now, which means that none of their other arguments are relevant. This is a meta-level framing question. The bindingness argument you conceded that intuitions are binding because there's inevitable. That's enough important for you to vote on vote on the affirmative. They say it's multiple parts and figure out and interact. This was not a sufficient answer. Figuring out and interacting concedes that the sovereign is not ultimately authority because theoretically they should be able to do whatever they want. That means that certain restrictions are okay and like the affirmative. Good round.
Yeah, good round.
Good debate. Good debate. Thanks for letting us record this. I have no idea if this is going to work recording.